Hi students, welcome to this talk. My name's Magnus Frampton from the University of Vechta. Welcome Italian students. I normally teach in Italy every March. I visit you in Genoa. I really enjoy meeting you. I really enjoy linking in with my colleagues. Paolo, your teacher. I really enjoy your beautiful city, your great vegetarian food. I'm not here this March. We're having lessons at home. I'm hoping you're going to enjoy these videos I'm making for you. Videos on a really interesting part of social work in Germany. Also nice chance for me to say hello, social work in Germany students. This is a module I teach in Vechta. So we're going to think about German social work from a comparative perspective, from an outsider's perspective. I'm going to use this as a chance to give you an insight into a lovely cluster of social work services called family support services. I'll be defining what I mean with that shortly. First of all, though, let's have a look at some lovely German art. This is an image that I show my students in Vechta. I ask my students the question, what do you think about this image? What do you think when you look at it? What associations do you have looking at this image? What's the painter trying to capture? I invite my students to discuss these videos in pairs, so maybe link in with a telephone friend or telephone partner and press pause now. So what did you come up with? Why do you find this image interesting? A lot of my students give the same answer. This is an image about the idea of Geborgenheit, the idea of being protected, being safe, somebody bringing you into them, belonging together, the child with the child's mother in this case, and being a kind of unity together. So it's a painting showing the protection and that utterly safe feeling that little baby has. And maybe that's a nice bridge to our topic. We're thinking about children, we're thinking about child welfare, and we're thinking about keeping children feeling safe and feeling protected. It's a lovely chance for me to do a bit of promotion for this particular painter. I think she's absolutely wonderful. She died just over 100 years ago. I talk about her with great pleasure in Vechta because she's actually more or less a local artist. She was based in Weber, which is not so far away from the town of Vechta. She's an expressionist painter. She's trying to capture expressions and feelings, emotions in her images. I love her subjects. She has quite different subjects from many artists. She does subjects, she has subjects, the people around her. She has farmers, older people, lots of paintings of children, self-portraits. So utterly fascinating in her subject matter. And I think I'm enjoying her work also from my background as a social worker. She's got a real passion for people. And if you're in Bremen, Vechta students, when everything's normalized, check out those museums. There's such lovely paintings of hers hanging in Bremen. Of course, today we can easily visit these museums online. So there you are, that's your homework, guys. Check out the art gallery for Kunsthalle Bremen virtually. Lovely. So enough of Paula for now. Let's go back to our social work topic. We're thinking about family services. Maybe it's nice if I say a few words about different kinds of services that can be supportive for families. I think it's helpful to categorize the social work services we have. They're not all the same, and I want to talk about one particular distinct category of services. My categorization, one which I prefer, is this. In social work, we have some services which are for everyone. They're universal general services, and they're helping all families with the challenges and the stresses of everyday life. Two nice examples. In a sense, youth work, youth clubs would be an example of one of these universal services. If you are a young person, you can just go, but open access. Another nice example, if you know the British system, think of Sure Start, the Sure Start project. If you don't know that, enter those terms into a search machine. It's a really beautiful concept. Sure Start was a kind of family centre offering childcare and other services for parents. Really, really lovely idea. Real good low threshold family services. So this is my first category, general services out there for everybody. Category 2 is more specifically targeted services, services for this family and this family and this family. We can talk about family support, we can talk about family services, done in cooperation with the parents, done voluntarily, you know, freely. The parents, the child, everybody's working together. We can describe these as being personal social services because they are for family X or family Y. And I guess the real concept here is those families in particularly difficult life situations. Life situations which may make it harder for a child's welfare to be guaranteed. Now, in extreme cases, we may have to consider child protection services, and that for me is a separate category of service. Once we're concrete worried about a child protection issue, I guess we're suggesting that there's going to be the help there, whether the parents want it or not, whether the parents cooperate or not. So there's that nuance of meaning of involuntary help, or either the idea of coercion. Coercion is the idea of force. So in child protection cases, the help's there and the family gets it, whether they want it or not. Forget about that for now. I want to go back to these family support services. That's our topic in today's talk. Good. Now, family support services for me have a number of functions. Firstly, families should have the personal support that they need simply because they need it. So for me, the real basic thing behind this is need. And it's an everyday need. Child raising is not always simple. You know, raising kids, raising young children, you know, babies, the baby period, you know, the teenage years. This is difficult stuff. There's going to be difficulties in a child's upbringing. That can result from issues on either side. You know, it could be some part of the child and the child's life, or it could be part of the parent and the parent's life. It doesn't really matter on which side the issues are there. The important point is the need is there. There's a need for some kind of help in this upbringing of the kid. Good. But a second idea developing on that, if we give families help, this can have a very proactive, preventative function. So it can be part of prevention, helping us remove problems before they even come. So see this German interest in family support today as being part of that German interest in being preventative. And it goes without saying, if you're very, very clever, we can use these voluntary services, this family support, as a kind of voluntary alternative to child protection measures. In other words, we can be protective, we can do child protection, but it doesn't feel that way. You know, it's child protection, but with a cooperative, non-coercive character. And you know, a German social worker would say, and that's how it should always be anyway. And in a sense, they may be quite right. So that's one other exciting use of this. So it's, you know, it's quite multifaceted. This family support has a number of different functions. Good. We've got some jargon here that we need to go through. There's a bit of terminology here. The German interventions are known by many different names, all a bit related. In the law, we talk about it as Hilfe zur Erziehung. Hilfe zur Erziehung. And Germans might also talk about erzieherische Hilfe, Hilfen zur Erziehung, or erzieherische Hilfen. There's a whole bunch of different terms there. Sorry. A word-for-word translation to English would be, well, Erziehung is something like child raising, and Hilfe is a little bit like help. So you could call this upbringing help or upbringing support. That would be a nice word-for-word translation. Good. In the English language, I think the closest term is the term I've used a couple of times already. I'm going to call these services family support services. Good. Now, I've mentioned this as legal jargon. This is really a legal concept, and it's a concept in our German social work law. German social work law, I guess the heart of German social work law is one particular statute. We call it the Kinder- und Jugendhilfegesetz. Actually, that sounds a little bit like Children's Services Act. And it's worth noting it comes from exactly the same historical time as the England and Wales Children Act 1989. Interesting, huh? Because these two acts both came at the same time as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Okay, so they were all bashed together, you know, intellectually developed, discussed, put together by the experts in the course of the late 1980s. So we've got real potential for interesting comparative social work here. We can look at the German and the English system together. Good, good. One reason why the comparison can be quite good fun is that German family support services, they really are very systematically outlined in German law in clear detail. So, you know, it's systematic, it's logical, logisch, and it's in clear detail. And this leads us to another question. I want you to natter with your partner, why? Why is the legal German so clear and easy to read? You know, I've got my law book here, and it's big and it's a bit frightening to look at. It's got small writing in. But once I do start reading it, even me, Magnus, a non-native speaker, I can get my head around the terminology. So why is it so clear? Why is it so easy to read? Natter with your partner. There is a simple answer, and the answer is very German and I think very beautiful. Pause here. Did you guess? Why is the legal language so straightforward? Germany is a very democratic place. It really values the idea of democracy, of citizens having rights, rights which are outlined in the laws. And having rights only really makes sense if you as a citizen can claim your rights. So if we've got a bunch of social work services for the citizens, they should be able to understand what their rights are, what services can they access, and it should be straightforward for them to read about that and inform themselves about that. They'll be helped by a social worker, not a lawyer, but a social worker, and that person also has to have a deep and professional knowledge of these services. So the legislative solution, give a catalogue of services, give detail, make it exactly clear to everybody what's on offer. So it's a nice answer, isn't it? This is part of the transparency of German public life. Isn't it great? Good. I'm going to briefly introduce you to this set of services. The set of services is described over a series of different articles or sections. We call them paragraphs in German. Section is the English word here. And it starts quite early in one of these statutes with section 27. Upbringing help for who? Let me show you how simple the language is by giving you a few basic points about this. So my first question is, who gets these services? Who can claim, who's entitled to these services? I'm also going to ask the question, when is there an entitlement? Under what specific two circumstances? So how does the legal side work? It's very, very simple. The person who might have a claim, the person who might have an entitlement, is the person with parental responsibility. So typically we're talking about the parent or the guardian, the parent or the caregiver. Good. When is there an entitlement? What are the circumstances? We've got an and clause in the law. So the first point which is important is when an upbringing appropriate to the child's welfare is not being assured. It's a very, very funny passive sentence, but the lawmaker is forced to pick that passive sentence for a very good reason. We want to be non-stigmatizing here. We don't want to say the parents are doing their job wrong or the child is a difficult or problem child. And the lawmaker is finding a formulation which avoids pointing the finger at somebody. And this solution works. The child's welfare is not being guaranteed. That we're worried about the child's welfare, okay? So the upbringing is not making us feel secure about the child's welfare. That's the first point. There's an and clause. The second criteria, the support we give must be suitable and it must be necessary for the child's development. So we have criteria, but if you look at those two sentences, it's fairly loose. The social worker, if the social worker feels that this help could be suitable and it is necessary for the child's welfare, the social worker could argue that the parents have that entitlement. It goes without saying, if the child thinks that there's a need and the parents don't, it's the child's possibility to communicate that to the social worker. And again, the social worker can then gently try to sell the services to the parents. So yeah, good German cooperative family support. I'm just concluding this part of the presentation with one last slide here. What's the form of the support? What form does this family support take? What determines the type and the scope of the work? Should anyone else be involved in the help? Once again, the law gives us very clear answers here. What form does it take? The support is given with particular reference to, well, the next 7 or 8 paragraphs. So we look through sections 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. So we've got 8 different sections in this law statute, and each one describes a particular concrete service. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a catalogue of German services. You know, this is the menu, so to say, for family support social work. What kind of service and how much of that service you get, that simply depends on the individual need. Again, wonderfully straightforward German stuff this. Should anyone else be involved in the help? Oh yes, absolutely. The closer social surroundings of a child should be involved. So the social worker's task will be to identify what people are in this child's circle. You know, who else may have an interest here? You know, who are the stakeholders within this child's social environment? Great, I'm going to come to a close for this talk. It continues in part 2, the second talk. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll be seeing you in